You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here, and man, just like any other time, we have another special story with y'all today. We have a special guest, Deshaun Jackson. He is going to share with us all about health, man. I mean, you can never, ever get tired of these topics because it is essential for you to do the best version of yourself. So first, we're going to learn more about him. Today's topic is going to be unlocking your full potential, integrating mindset, training, and nutrition. And before I talk more about him, I want to say, go blue, man. U of M in the house. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Go blue. First, thank you for having me on. And listeners, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it.
You have various roles, man. I mean, as a family man, a father, physical therapist, assistant, and registered nurse. You graduated from the University of Michigan, and you did that during the COVID pandemic, man, COVID-19. So, man, we got to dive into that. But first, before we do that, man, tell us a little bit about your career.
Thank you for having me on. So, long story short, I started off as a sous chef, and I worked that for about maybe 5-6 years. And I knew I wanted to do more. Didn't quite know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to be in the medical field. So I decided to pursue my physical therapy assistant career and graduated from local community college. And I worked that for about just under 7 years. Again, knew I wanted to do more. To highlight that, I had a situation where when I was working as a physical therapy assistant, somebody I was working with basically told me that I needed to stay in my lane. And I took that personal. So I made sure to go back, get my nursing degree from U of M. So that way I had a wider lane. And when I came back, they would never tell me where I could stay in again. And I also had my godmother. She is influential in my life and helped motivate me and push me into nursing. So once I graduated with nursing from U of M during COVID, I thought I was going to be on a surgical ICU unit. You couldn't have told me different. And then I got into mental health. And once I was here, I found my calling, and it has just been amazing. And I've used this job to help propel me into lifestyle coaching. And that is kind of my career summed up very quickly.
Not only did you make that lane bigger, but now you're on media platforms telling the story. I love it. That's a nice way of answering with work. When you look at what you've been able to do, you develop elite life mindset coaching, mindset training, nutrition program. Tell us a little bit about what you do in today's time and how you're helping that focus to empower individuals to have a structured, daily habit, mindset, and personalized strategies.
So what I've been able to do is I've been able to tie two careers. I've been able to tie my nursing, working in mental health with youth and adults into my lifestyle coaching. So what I encountered working as a nurse was I was working with the youth and adults, and they had self-limiting beliefs. They had barriers in their mind that they couldn't overcome, whether that was past trauma, rape, or abuse, you name it, depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. And so what I did when I first graduated, I was teaching people coping skills. Go out, go for a walk, play a video game, reading off a list, until I met my coach. And my coach, Wes Watson, pushed me. It's about mindset. It's about how you perceive things, Deshaun. For example, we all have somebody who will die in our family. That is the one fact and given in this life. It is not the death that hinders us. It's how we view and take in the emotions surrounding the death. And so I've used that example and mindset training with my patients to then push into my lifestyle training. And I found it's applicable. Whether patients come into the facility I work in with depression, or I work with clients who have self-limiting beliefs, they all have these thoughts in their head supported with no evidence that for some reason they can't do what they're setting out to do. And so I've used the lifestyle coaching and working as a nurse in a mental health facility to push. It's all in your head. Let's get what you're dealing with. Let's work around how you think about it and the emotions you're having, because likely that's what's stopping and hindering you.
Like always on the show, we always point people to seek professional help. And you being in the health industry, what are some of the things that you notice with your patients? Because everyone is completely unique in their own right. But what's some of the things you notice and how you try to take apart and break down the process to help them reach their fullest potential with their health?
If I had to generalize and say, if there was one thing across the board, whether as a nurse or a lifestyle coach, that I've noticed patients to clients have in both dynamics is it's their thinking. It's absolutely the way they view things. And so I've noticed that we tend to come in with these barriers, these limits of how and why we can't do what we're trying to achieve to do. And a lot of that isn't supported by evidence. Or if they do have some evidence support, maybe they're hindered physically in some way. It does not mean they can't achieve their goals, but they put that mental block in and then they just run with it. So first we got to address that mental block. Let's get that out of the way first. And then I know with nutrition, with exercise, with mindset training, I can push you into whatever else you need to do. But we got to address the mental block first.
And as a professional yourself, you are not absent of any personal challenges in life. So kind of illustrate that for the audience. Was some of the ways your personal challenges kind of promoted your growth in your career and also personally at home?
Absolutely. So for me, I divide that into two categories. One, professionally and career-wise. I was, whether a physical therapy assistant or a registered nurse, I was a non-traditional student. I was in a predominantly female-dominated profession and career in both of these. And I'm an African-American male. So the opposition that I had dealt with, constantly having to ask for help or finding the example that I used, when it came time to study, my female predominantly Caucasian counterparts, I wasn't the first person they came to for the study group. So a lot of times I had to ask for help. I couldn't be afraid to go after the things I needed because I was a non-traditional student. And then the other ways that I see it affected is in my personal life. I have now been through my third divorce, and going through each divorce, it has helped propel me and push me professionally in my career. Now, I didn't notice it at the time, but as I looked back and turned around, I seen that each divorce, I decided, Deshaun, you got to do something to push yourself, or else you're going to be stuck in that myriad of emotions. And so that's how it's kind of tied together and worked for me to push myself.
You listen on Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Deshaun Jackson, and the topic that we're exploring is unlocking your full potential, integrating mindset, training, and nutrition. Let's talk about nutrition, man, because that's something that can be loosely, talked about on social media, and some people can be on quote unquote experts, and they may not even know what they're talking about. You, as a professional in the health industry, what are some of the misconceptions of nutrition? And how can we gain a little bit more clarity on how we try to personalize that in our own life?
I gotta say, I don't know if it's a misconception, but it does seem like there is a gap in between when people come in for help, whether mental health, or I encounter them in lifestyle. They tend to think that they don't have to work out or they don't have to eat right. And I don't know where that gap comes from, but your gut is your second brain. You absolutely have to know your macronutrition, weigh your food, know your fats, your carbs, and your proteins. If you don't, you are guessing, and you're probably guessing over. You're probably slightly overweight. And when it comes to working out, it's not, people think that it's just me going to lift a weight. They're missing the point. You're going to work out those negative feelings. You're going to put yourself into flow state. You're going to build yourself up aesthetically. And I can even tie it together. People want to change their life or lead people when they struggle to control what they put in their mouth. How can you change your life when you're not disciplined enough to even control what you put in your mouth? So I say, you want to change you first. Let's start with to see if you have the discipline to just go work out and control your eating. Then after that, I know you can do anything else. But if you can't control you, how do you expect to affect change on anyone else?
Yeah. And the next one follow-up with that is when you are working with patients and clients, give us an example of maybe someone who they didn't have a whole lot of information on, nutrition and how they should go about trying to create a plan for exercising and eating better. What could be a good example you can share with the audience of someone that you kind of helped them navigate that, and they saw great progress after they started to implement what you gave them?
I will talk about a specific female client that I work with in person. I've known her 30 plus years. And I remember when I first started my lifestyle coaching, she came to me and she said, Deshaun, I've never been in a gym in my life, much less been told what I can eat and how I can eat. And she was all the way skeptical. This isn't going to work. I'm not going to stick with it. She was as oppositional as you can get. And so I opened up with her and I told her that very first day, we are going to get to a point during your workout. We're going to do 100 burpees before you ever touch a weight. And she told me I was crazy. Now, in fact, we work out this afternoon at 4:30. She's up to, or will be up to 70 burpees before we go into a workout. I specifically put her through that because when I work with clients, you can't tell me what you can't do. You can't do it because you can't envision it, but I see you from a different light. I'm looking at you from the 30,000 foot view, that mile high view. I know what can be done through discipline and exercise. So that's how I start to address with the client in real time. First, I'm going to conquer your self-limiting beliefs and your barriers by pushing you through what you can't. Then next time I ask you to do something, you won't say no.
When you explore building a foundation, like, was a good routine, was some good habits that a patient or client can start with, especially if they're a beginner. I'm sure most people, if they're honest with themselves, that's why they're going to see professional help, because they need someone that can help guide them, someone that has themselves been educated on this matter. What are some of the things you see as some fundamentals, building blocks for someone just starting out with you?
So I encourage my clients and or patients to kind of set the template that I do. First, you need to start your day slightly earlier than when you're normally getting up. The time you're waking up isn't benefiting you. We need to be up an hour earlier so that you can use that time, to start your morning process, whether that's your incantations, whether that's your coffee in the morning, whether that's your showering, doing something that puts you positively in a good light, reading. Then you need to go into a workout. You need to set the tone for the day, whether you're at the gym, whether you're working out from home. There's no excuses. Going for a run, whatever the case may be, you need to go into a workout. Then if, let's say, you're going to work or you're volunteering, you need to find a way to step outside of yourself, your current situation, so that you can help people. Or else you tend to dwell on what you're going through and the things you're dealing with. After that, then if you're working on yourself, how can you improve on yourself when your day's at an end? Is there anything you need to work on? Anything you can improve to help you? These are the processes I start to implement with patients and clients to try to push them, motivate them, change what they're going through.
Listen, I'm Refocused Radio, talking to our guest, Deshaun Jackson, and you as a father, physical therapist, assistant, and now a registered nurse. We mentioned earlier about you being able to graduate from University of Michigan, Flint during the COVID-19 pandemic. That is a mile marker that is worth exploring further. Let's talk about mental health and how that can play a role. Because when challenges come, especially something like COVID-19 is beyond our control, it just happens. We had to make adjustments. What have you learned with those challenges and how that has strengthened your mental health so that way you can know I can get through this?
During the time, there was a lot of self-doubt when I started going into nursing. I didn't think I could make it. I didn't know what I was doing. Despite starting the process, didn't have any confidence in myself. And so I remember initially in the beginning, one of the nurses telling me, you have to think like a nurse, Deshaun. And I didn't understand. What do you mean? I'm just starting the program. How do you think like a nurse? And what they meant was you need a mentor. You need somebody, a coach, somebody in a nursing who can guide you with what you're trying to do. So the minute I got a nursing mentor, it changed the game for me. Same way when I got a life coach, it changed the game for me. It all of a sudden had somebody who had the blueprint, had the template to help me get through what I was dealing with. And that was essential because going through the program, what I always say is nobody would ever say they want to go to nursing school during COVID. It just doesn't happen. I failed 2 classes in the program, which pushed me back 1 year. That year was the most devastating year because all my internal dialogue wanted to go negative. It wanted to go, you're going to fail. This ain't going to work. You need to quit. Go back to PTA. You're not smart enough. And if I would have listened to those negative internal voices, if at any time I would have just said, I quit, me and you would not be having this conversation here today. Wow. So I learned that through every opposition, no matter what you go through, you can't quit. That's the one guarantee of failure. And so I've used that, again, that experience. Now, when I come into new obstacles that I face, I went through nursing school during COVID. You can't stop me.
And speaking of that, it can't stop me. Let's dive into the importance of being consistent, because it's one thing to have this brilliant goal or this inspiring thought in your mind, but it's another thing to be able to translate. Because like you said moments ago, you had a little setback that put you off a year, but that was also used as motivation to push through. So kind of touch on the importance of consistency and how that can benefit someone if they choose to keep that, as their focus.
How I describe consistency is I heard a great quote from my coach. You will never reach your goals, but you will always fall to the strength of your systems. So that means is you need to have daily habits set in place. Show me a man's habits and I'll predict his future. I don't care what your goal is. If I see your daily habits, I know what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. I can even maybe tell when you're going to get there. But if you just have a goal with no daily habits set in place, I don't believe you'll ever reach it. So for me, it's been consistent daily habits done time over time under tension, even when you don't want to, especially when you don't want to. This is what makes goals. And in my mind, really, we need to get away from telling people about goals. We need to establish their daily habits. You establish their daily habits, you know where they're going to go and what they'll achieve.
I'm going to have to listen to this episode myself, man. It's like a masterclass. And I love that because that signals the idea that when we are exploring this whole topic of, integrating mindset and training and nutrition, they kind of, you correct me if I'm wrong, but they kind of work hand in hand, right? They're not really separate. So touch on that.
I've yet to meet a person who controlled their eating, was religious in their workouts, who didn't have a positive mindset. And to me, they don't exist. So in noticing that the people that do well with macronutrition, the people that do well with exercise and mindset tend to tie these things together. I tend to notice they tend to work these well interchangeably. So I've used that. If you can master nutrition, you can work out. If you can work out, you can master nutrition. But again, you got to tie the discipline together. And it all starts with how you look at it. If you go into it looking like, oh, this exercise is so horrible. Oh, I don't want to eat this food because it's so bad. Well, you just set the tone. You shaded the perspective that it's going to be hard and difficult versus saying hard and difficult is exactly where I need to be right now. The head of the Phoenix Suns basketball coach at the time had one of the best quotes I ever had. Hard is exactly where you want to be. That's how you know you're in the right spot.
A lot of people on this program is like a common thread that seems to always come to surface, and that is self-awareness. So I want to marry that idea to the next thought of how can self-awareness plus the idea that, man, it's really up to you. Like the responsibility is on your shoulders. How can you have that focus to say, you know what, like I can't blame anybody else. I have to have this mental toughness that, is all on me.
I think that we're speaking on has especially been, along with patients and clients' self-limiting beliefs, that topic right there is some of the hardest things I've seen in trying to change people's mindset, is believing them that they already have the innate ability to solve their problems and issues. What happens is people get into life circumstances or they self-inflict life circumstances. Either way, when they get into it, they tend to think they don't have what they need to get out. I disagree. You have have absolutely everything you need to get out of the situation when you start to believe in yourself, when you show yourself you have enough confidence in the situation, and you take the right and appropriate steps. But if you've never done that, then you're right. Why would you believe that you have the tools necessary to get out? You've never exercised them. You've never used them before. So your subconscious doesn't believe that you have the ability. It's a skill. You have to use it repeatedly over time.
We're listening to I Am Refocused Radio, and we've been talking to our guest today, Deshaun Jackson. I have to say, your story is very inspiring because going back to the earlier thoughts when you mentioned that someone kind of said that, you're not in the right area or stay in your lane or you need to do what you got to do, and you came back after you did some construction and made that lane wider. Let's dive on that because you have to make a decision if you want to be better. And then you have to have this follow through. Explain to the audience from your personal perspective why follow through is important versus just one day I'm going to do it.
So it all starts with everybody has that moment, the aha of I want to do this. I want to try this. I want to start my own business. And then once the aha moment leaves, they don't know what to do. So the way I've been to look at it is we tend to want life to reveal the whole thing, show us the whole path. So I know I'm going to make it. Life doesn't work like that. It gives you the aha moment and then you got to take another step. And then it reveals another step. Then it's a process. And most people get mirrored in walking out the process. And so because of the opposition that I've been through, I no longer get mirrored in walking out the process. And, we hear so much about it, in basketball and Joel Embiid. And I really feel that is the sauce. It's not the start. It's not the finish. It's the work you're putting in to make yourself the person who can temper through the situation that you're dealing with. You're trying to create the new you 2.0 to deal with the situation. And if you quit or give up, you don't create that person. So in that consistency, I've just learned, even if it doesn't feel like I am winning, you don't quit, Deshaun, because quitting guarantees one thing, and that's failure. So whether it was the PTA, whether it was the nursing, and now the lifestyle coaching, even though I'm in the early stages of this lifestyle coaching, I know if I would have quit nursing, I wouldn't be here. If I would have quit PTA, I wouldn't be here. So Deshaun, you've set a track record. Stay consistent. You know that pressure over time will give you the results that you're looking for.
My last question for you before we sign off is, when it comes to your mind, how do you use structure versus dysfunction and understanding the difference between the two when it comes to you to actually have the ability to execute your professional world in the health system and also as a father?
So when it comes to structure, I actually absolutely believe in structure and discipline. I think it is key and paramount to establishing yourself and then trying to help other people. Discipline. How do you stay disciplined and think you can lead other people, but you can't discipline yourself? So it has been essential. I've already talked about in my career that I stay disciplined, and in my personal life. When it comes to dysfunction, if I feel like I'm in a place of dysfunction, then my brain goes, Deshaun, that's a notification from the universe that you need to change, do something, step it up, address the situation. I don't look at dysfunction as, it doesn't shut me down. It doesn't make me more unorganized. It actually is a notification that I need to be more driven, that something's not in alignment and you need to correct and make change. So if I look at it like that, where A, if I'm in alignment or things are working, or B, if there's some type of dysfunction and that just is a notification to get back in alignment, then I'm always on par to work and change myself. It came down to mindset. If any dysfunction is going on, truly, it's a notification, Deshaun. Make the adjustment, change, do what you need to do so you don't feel that way.
Someone listening to this right now and they want to know how they can connect with you, what's the best way that they can learn about more resources that you provide and also just keep in touch?
You can find me on Facebook, Deshaun Jackson, DESHAUN Jackson, or you can find me on Instagram, the PsychRnFit, PsychRnFit. I am on there, both of those platforms currently, pushing my lifestyle coaching, letting people know who I am so that they can meet me. What I found is people don't necessarily sign up for a lifestyle coach right out the gate. They want to know who you are, get to know you, get comfortable, and believe that you can help them. So I'm putting myself out there because I believe I can help you.
This is I Am Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Deshaun Jackson. Man, I can't believe time went by this fast, but like always, man, I want to say thank you for your time, man.
Thank you very much for having me on.